Hi there everyone, thank you very much for watching this little video. I'm delighted today to be joined by the one and only, the GIF, Greg Gifford, who happens to be in Brighton for Brighton SEO, where he is running the local SEO training, as well as doing one of the keynote speeches at the kind of conference itself. So Greg, you've been to Brighton many, many times. Are you happy to be back, or is the cold weather annoying you?
It's funny that you say that it's cold weather, actually, because I'm walking down from the train station and everybody's bundled up and I'm walking around in this and I'm almost sweating and I'm like, this is great, because it was like 42, 43 when I left today.
Okay, so pretty chilly, yeah.
Yeah, this
actually,
is
it's quite
wonderful
muggy,
for
actually.
me.
It's quite muggy this time.
It is a bit muggy, but I'm always happy to be back. Brighton's my favorite conference, so
good.
I will, as long as they'll keep having me back, I'll keep coming.
Well, I'm sure they'll keep having you back. We're very passionate about it as well because we're kind of based in Brighton. So, so how many times have you done the local SEO training here now?
Oh, geez. I think this is I broke my streak because I couldn't do it in April of this year. So I think this is my 9th one to do.
Wow, okay.
So I've been coming for 5 years.
Going for 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how does your training that you're going to be running tomorrow, this year, how does it differ than, say, the training you did 2 years ago in terms of the kind of
exactly the same. I don't update it at all. No, actually, so I have kind of my outline of here's what I need to talk about. And then I've got sections of, I'm talking about link building, I'm talking about Google My Business, I'm talking about whatever. And so I have it set up so that I can go in and remove things that have become outdated or put new things in. Typically, if you guys have seen me present, I have the movie backgrounds on my slides, and every slide is a different movie. But for this training, just because it's an all-day training, so I'll do a movie and then I'll change the text, but the background doesn't change. So if I'm talking about, basic Google My Business optimization, it's just the same movie in the background. So that lets me be able to go in and, shorten it, lengthen it without having to go, now I have to go find 5 more movies that fit my theme.
But in terms of the focus then of the course, to try and mirror how local search has changed in the last 3 or 4 years.
Much, much heavier on Google My Business than it used to be.
Yeah, okay. And what's got lost in the way then? What's become less and less?
I used to talk a bit about keyword research and how to do local keyword research. I've kind of just dropped that altogether.
Okay. But that's not because it's not important.
Not because it's not important, more just in the interest of time.
Yeah. So
something that I added in probably 2 years ago. So it's the way the training's scheduled. It's like you come in the morning and then you have a tea break and then you go for a bit more and then you have lunch and then you go for a bit and have a break and then end up at like 4. So it's 4 sections. But I used to just do one big massive deck and we would stop whenever we needed to stop. But now I've added a second deck at the end and cut some out of the first one. So the 3/4 of the course is local SEO, what's important, what do you need to know, what's changed since last year, what's the important things you need to do. And then the last little section is more of agency side. So it's the first part's here's how to do it. The second part is here's how to run your agency and do local SEO as an agency. Or if you're in-house, how to do things in-house, how to sell to potential customers and explain the difference of local. There's a whole section that I do in that agency focus part of here's who to follow on Twitter that are local SEO experts, so that even if you don't use Twitter, go make a Twitter list and just look at it once a week and this will tell you what's going on. And there's a big section in there about here's all the tools that I like to use. Not saying that you guys have to use them, but these are the tools that I think are the best tools to use. And I'll go through each one and say, here's the tool, here's the things that it does. There's a lot of overlap between tools, but here's the one thing I really like about this tool that's really cool. And so I've added that in at the end and taken out some of that keyword research stuff and said, hey, look, keyword research is important, but I feel like this other thing's more important for you to know for success.
What has been the biggest things that you've added in terms of kind of GMB in the last year then?
Definitely a whole lot about Google Posts and Google Q&A.
Yeah.
So I probably spend a half hour at least just talking about posts and Q&A.
Okay.
So there's a lot to it. Breaking down the different types of posts, breaking down, there's a whole weird issue where cropping is super wonky and not consistent and not even center cropped, and showing the different ways that things get cropped and the difference between mobile and desktop, and talking about how most people don't think about it like AdWords, and you need to optimize for that thumbnail and not worry about what it is when people pop up, because you got to get them to click it to even see it popped up. So talking a lot about that, showing the different post types and why you would need one over another versus, depending on what your specific goal is, here's the kind of post that you might need to use instead of this other one that's got a date range and you can be lazy and leave it up all month. You're better off doing a what's new post
so it's
once a week.
Pretty detailed and practical then.
It's very practical. It's definitely not, and that's kind of why I took the keyword research part out, because I felt like that was a little bit more high level stuff.
Right.
And I don't like it to be, I go really fast. I mean, the 3/4 part, that's like the tactical local SEO stuff's 389 slides.
Wow, okay.
And then the other one is 100 and something slides. So I see too many talks, because I go to so many conferences that are just really high level, like, hey, local SEO is important because now that mobile's out, everything matters, and they don't really tell you, okay, here's what to do. And the people that are paying, they're paying $600 to take this class. They're not taking this class to go, hey, local SEO is important, rah, rah. They're taking this class to go, what the heck do I actually do?
Yeah.
So I try to just load it with, here's exactly what your playbook is. Go do this, go do this, go do this, go do this. And then I always give everybody my personal email address too, and I say, hey, look, if you need something really specific, just email me about it and I'll help you. I'm not going to charge you for consulting. Like, you took the class, I'll help you.
Do you think it's Do you think over the kind of 4 or 5 years you've been doing it, has it got harder to be successful in local search and what you're training people on?
Depends on where your location is. In the States, 1,000%. Over here, I don't think it's any harder than it was 3 or 4 years ago. Because
we're not making use of all the available opportunities to us, and the bar is lower.
100%. It's just not. In the U.S., I feel like it's a lot more competitive, and a lot more businesses are kind of hip to the game, and have been hip to the game for a long time. So you've got some verticals like legal, where just anything I talk about really isn't going to work anymore because everybody's already doing it.
Yeah.
But over here in the UK, and I mean even the conferences I've done in Europe, I used to say it was because you guys are behind us. I don't think that you're behind us, because there's a lot of really smart people doing really smart things over here, and the algorithm's the same. I just think that general public knowledge isn't there. A lot of people just don't know what local SEO is. So simple stuff like geoterm optimization, you do that in the States, and there's a couple of verticals where it still slays because nobody else is doing it, but most people have kind of figured that out. You can come and do that over here, and you're making massive changes in how you're showing up in searches in 24 hours.
Okay, just because it's not so widespread in terms of the application of these tactics for UK businesses.
Sure. Yeah, and I don't think that the spam is as bad over here either. Spam is just out of control in the States.
It's getting better though, isn't it? I mean, all the pointers.
No. It's.
But what, you talking about listing spam or review spam? Or?
Both. Yeah. There are so many services you can go buy fake reviews from.
Sure.
I even saw one the other day. I don't ever talk about this in conferences because you don't want to suggest that this might work, because it does work, but you don't want to tell people to cheat. Mm-hmm. But there was a service that was doing Google reviews, and I don't remember what the cost was, but it was a lot more expensive than other services. But they actually had Android devices that they would go to the place of business and have the device there for 10 to 15 minutes and then leave. And 20 minutes later from that device would leave that review for you. So Google has the real world signal that, hey, this device was at that location, and 20 minutes later left a review. Wow. Yeah, you paid for that review and it's a fake review, but Google's never going to figure that out. And name spam, just spamming the heck out of keywords in Google My Business is, I mean, you'll see lawyers that have 5 lines of their name because they're like, Jim Bob and Associates, dog bite lawyer, fall down, slip and fall lawyer, all these stupid things. And unfortunately it works. But there's a lot of people out there
tightened up on that. The whole Wall Street Journal
supposedly. No.
Really?
They make a show of it, but it's so bad. I mean, Joy Hawkins, I mean, she does tons of business just fighting spam.
Sure.
She works at, and I have a lot of friends that do stuff in legal, and they get a lot of results just by going in and knocking out all of the competitors that are spamming their names and getting the guys bumped down because, you're reporting, lawyers are really bad about using, WeWork or Regis or fake offices, and you go report those and get those taken down, and then now your guy bumps up because he's the only one there. I had a lot of experience. I was in auto dealerships for years and years and years before I switched gigs, and now I can do anything. But, car dealers didn't really cheat with the name, but they would cheat really bad with reviews.
Yeah.
And there was a sting. I haven't read anything about this year, but usually there's a sting every year by the FTC in the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, because fake reviews is against federal law in the U.S. And last year there was a group of 10 dealerships in California that got caught leaving fake reviews. Like their own staff was putting fake reviews. They got fined $3.6 million.
Mm.
And
do you think the FTC does that to kind of find someone to kind of punish, so that everyone else around them goes, I don't want that to happen to me. I'm gonna back away from that.
100%. That's why they do it.
Yeah.
And they usually go after car dealers because car dealers are pretty notorious for being the worst for fake reviews.
Yeah.
Attorneys are pretty bad about it too, but car dealers are really bad.
Car dealers,
and there's
car dealers can't fake their address though, can they? So at least there's kind of
but
locations.
there's so many services out there that specifically cater to automotive for fake reviews. So it's just because of the fact that I think everybody, like I said, everybody's hip to the game. Everybody kind of gets the local thing. Everybody does geoterm optimization, local link building, and city pages, and the things that you should do that are best practice. So how do you differentiate yourself? You start cheating.
Yeah.
And then it makes it where the cheaters show up better, and then you have to go fight the cheaters. And, Google's made it easier. They've got the forum to go report fake listings now, which is great. But I think over here, outside of the States, I mean, even in Canada, it's not so bad. So I think outside of the U.S., it's not that everybody's behind. It's just you don't have as many people that know about it.
So how much of your course is centered around Google as opposed to other non-Google sort of acquisition channels for businesses? How much of it is just educating people around how to get traffic or get something from Google?
When I do a training class here, it's all Google.
Yeah.
I mentioned Bing. I'm like, hey, if you want to worry about Bing, okay, cool, do your Bing places and you're done. Because the signal weight is different in the two algorithms, but if you're going to do everything that you're doing for Google, it's going to count for Bing and Yahoo. I do talk a little bit about Barnacle SEO, and in certain cases, depending on your vertical, you may have a bunch of aggregate sites like Yelp or something like that are going to show up and just due to the power of their domain, they're going to outrank you in these local searches, and they've got good SEOs doing that. So, okay, cool. You can't show up number one, but Yelp shows up number one. So you go make sure that you show up well in Yelp so that you're still going to get that visibility.
Do you think, as a sort of secondary question to that it's becoming more and more over-reliant on Google as our sole source of business opportunity?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So what does the future look like for them? Like 3 or 4 years time, are we at the thin end of a wedge where we are just going to become so beholden to Google that all those other channels just don't get a look in or don't really
I think we're already there.
Yeah.
I think we've been there for a few years. The thing that scares me that got a lot of buzz earlier this year and kind of died off was that questionnaire that Google sent out about paid features that clearly I don't think went through the proper channels because I don't think...
It was rubbish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think... I have asked a million people all year long, everyone I've talked to at conferences, if they got the survey and if they filled it out. The only people I've talked to that have filled out the survey completely were other local SEOs.
Yeah.
I don't think any
we were trying to work out what it was all about.
Yeah, because I don't think business owners could make it through.
Yeah.
It was just so incredibly long and not well put together. And if you know anything about surveys, the answers that they got and the data they got would have been complete garbage.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't help them anyway. But the fact that they are already at least internally thinking about how can we monetize all of these elements, I think it makes it scary.
Yeah.
And we've seen, the test where potentially you're going to have competitor ads running in your knowledge panel for your business. In your GMB listing, you'll have competitor ads. Unless you want to maybe pay Google to not have those show up. I mean, I think it's gross and dirty. But for the general business owner out there, if they can throw in $50 a month to potentially have their ads show up on competitors' listings, why would you not do that?
Yeah, why would you not? And obviously, if there's a retaliation thing that happens where I want my ads to show up on my competitors, and then suddenly everyone is paying.
But why would you
and the status quo is reestablished?
Right, but then also, why would you, if you're smart enough to know about that and you have somebody that does local SEO, why would you not also chip in 50 or 60 or 75 or whatever it's going to be to block ads from showing up on your own.
Yeah.
So
if they release that feature.
If they release that feature.
Yeah.
Or, making potentially Google Posts will now be a paid feature. I'd pay for that all day long, though, because we get great success from posts.
Do you?
Yeah.
And what sort of posts work best for you?
Promotional posts, 100%.
All promotional
posts.
posts.
It's got to be promotional. I've talked to way too many people that are like, yeah, every time I do a blog post, I put it on a post. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Because another one of the things that I've been talking a lot about, like the big buzz this year is zero-click search.
Yeah.
And, Rand puts out a lot of stuff about it, and all the big SEO tool companies are zero-click search. And everybody's thing is, it's because of rich snippets. Well, no, it's not. I think a vast majority of zero-click search is because local is so prevalent now, especially with people searching on mobile devices. And if I'm looking for a restaurant, I'm not going to click through to the restaurant's website to get their phone number to call and make a reservation. I'm going to click the number in their GMB. That's zero-click search. Yeah, I clicked their GMB, but I didn't click through to their website off of that query. Or I maybe dialed the phone number directly because I did it on my computer and I just dialed the phone. Yeah. So I think local is leading to a lot of what's being attributed as zero-click search. I don't think it's zero-click. I think it's just interaction with Google My Business or seeing that information, that top-line information. For a lot of businesses, if you're buying a car, sure, you're going to go do research. If I need to go find a tapas place here in Brighton, I'm going to look for tapas and, this guy's got great reviews. Cool. And I don't ever go to the guy's website.
So what does that mean then for business websites for different industries? Because I can see why restaurants, for example, where, you don't need to know that much about a tapas restaurant to buy it. But if you're looking for a cosmetic surgeon, you need to know a lot about that business before you buy it.
Exactly. And I think, too, that's what's, I haven't done any recently, but I used to speak at a lot of automotive conferences, and that's what was really interesting is because you'd have a lot of these SEO vendors trying to sell SEO to car dealers, and their whole thing would be to talk about whatever the big buzzy thing is in the SEO industry. So you'd have guys talking about voice search a year or two ago. Get ready for voice search for automotive. Okay, cool. For voice search, I might be like, hey, Google, order me a pizza.
Yeah.
Or, hey, Alexa, buy me some toilet paper. Nobody's ever going to go, hey, Alexa, buy me that new F-150. So I think certain verticals, you're not going to go, hey, Alexa, I need a boob job. You're going to go to that plastic surgery website and do your research and find the best surgeon. Tattoos. If you're going to get a tattoo, you're going to figure out which kind of tattoo you want to get. You're going to find the best artist to go to. You're going to be going to that guy's Instagram, that guy's website, that tattoo parlor's website. If you're like a restaurant or a bar, I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years a lot of restaurants and bars don't really have their own websites.
Yeah.
It might just all be sourced on
they'll be
GMB.
kind of massive advocates of BrightLocal SEO in terms of making sure they're on TripAdvisor and those sites where traffic is going through. They get the reviews, they've got all the photos they need, Instagram, as well potentially.
Well, and a lot of times over here you have to worry about TripAdvisor a lot more because in the States, Apple Maps only gets review stars from Yelp. Yeah. But outside of the States, it feeds from multiple sources, and most of the time restaurants and bars over here in the UK are going to get their stars from TripAdvisor. So, if you're getting looked up on Apple Maps, you got to have good stars. So a lot of people actually use
it for that purpose.
Yeah, they get a lot of TripAdvisor reviews.
Yeah.
Where in the States, maybe, but...
Yeah. So in your training, do you touch on social much and opportunities to get acquisition from social?
So social's another part that's really kind of dropped off. I used to talk about it more. I still have it in there. Most of the social now is more don't do this, like the really common mistakes that I see people making.
Okay.
I don't really talk about paid social. I used to kind of mention that a little bit, like the really cool thing that the targeted Facebook ads of like, I want to pop this map pen and advertise in a mile radius. And it's just, I only have so much time, so I've kind of dropped.
Fine.
I don't feel like...
Is that a reflection on the opportunity, a lessening opportunity in social for local businesses?
For organic social, 100%. Yeah, like organic social's really dying, and I don't think there's a whole lot left there.
Yeah.
If you want to pay to play, then social could still be amazing, but I think organically, there's not much there left, and I don't think organic social, you can do some brand building there, but, as far as I'm a local business and I want to show up better to potential customers, I don't think organic social is the answer to that anymore.
So what do you use it for paid then? Is that sort of promotion heavy?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think with paid, there's a whole lot of opportunities. We had a client that used to do, if you go to the movies over here, do they have the slides that play before the movies that are advertisements?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so the guy used to do those, paid for those advertisements. There's one movie theater in his town. He was a smaller town. He would pay for the advertisement and say,
Okay.
The ad was for his business, and if you bring the movie ticket in within a week of the day of the movie ticket, you get $10 off or something. I don't remember what the special was, but something like get $10 off if you bring the movie ticket in within a week of the movie. And he noticed, and this was a couple of years ago when this specific thing happened, but he noticed that it was really dropping off. And he suspected it was because people now go to the movies, and if they're there early, they're playing on their phone and they're not watching the ads. So we said, hey, why don't we try doing a Facebook ad? So we targeted a Facebook ad at the location of the movie theater and did a mile radius around it because there's a lot of restaurants there, so you could catch the people eating dinner before the restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
Or potentially if they went to a movie and then went and had drinks afterwards. It was a really small town, so it was like a, really old kind of town square kind of setup. So that 1 mile radius hit everything there. And he ran an ad there that was the same thing that would have been on the screen that was, $10 off with your movie ticket, and just had a boatload of people come in the next week for it. And so he quit paying the movie theater, and now he just, and all he has to do is he spends like $50 a week, which is cheaper than what he was spending with the theater.
Sure it was.
And he drops the Facebook ad there and runs it from like 5 o'clock till midnight every Friday and Saturday night. Boom, done. Same guy also quit advertising in the local high school football program. So, you go to the high school football game, you get a program, you have a full page ad, big nice thing. He quit doing that because, again, he didn't feel like he got anything out of it once he did the movie theater. He's like, well, let me try the high school football game. And they just did a purely brand building thing. It wasn't even a promotional thing. It was just brand building, and got a lot of notice off of that.
So the audience is still in those places, but they're just not consuming the media like the ads on the screen before all the program, because they're basically just looking at their phones.
Sure. Yeah, I do some freelance stuff on the side. And I have an adoption agency in Dallas that I do some stuff for.
Right.
And we've started running targeted local Facebook ads at pregnancy centers around town and abortion clinics around town.
Okay.
That are basically like, hey, look, adoption's another option. Yeah. And, there's one pregnant that's not an adoption clinic, but it's like a pregnancy center where, you're not going to, it's like you're a teenage chick and you don't want your parents to know, so you go to the pregnancy center. Sure. And get tested and whatnot, and then they've got info and will recommend you to either adoption places or abortion clinics or whatnot. And so we've been running there, and we're getting 10, 15 clicks a week off of one of those pregnancy centers. So I think there's still a huge play for targeted paid ads, especially on Facebook with the demographics. Even though they took away
they're kind of local, then they're contextual.
Yeah.
Not for everyone, but for the right people at the right time, you'll hit it.
Yeah, my agency was, another guy was speaking at a conference in Atlanta on Monday and Tuesday of this week, and we did a targeted Facebook ad. And we ran the mile radius, but then we did a bunch of other mile radiuses around it as exclusions. So we basically locked it down just to the hotel where the conference was to just run additional branding that matched the stuff that we had in our booth. And for us, we don't really I don't talk so much about traditional advertising, because most of the people we work with, we're encouraging to shut down traditional, because we're very data driven. Any decision we make is very data driven. If you want to do this, let's have the data and make sure it's the right decision, because we have data to show. With traditional advertising, it's very hard to quantify that you're really getting any results. One of the things that we do like to do, though, is we make all custom reports for our clients. So every client's got a different looking report based on the KPIs that matter to them or what matters to their bottom line.
Right.
And so, if we have somebody, for instance, that's running television ads, then we'll get their ad schedule and we can load that into Data Studio and combine it with their Google Analytics views to see if there is a boost in search after a television ad runs.
Right. Okay.
And so sometimes we do see that, where we can say, hey, look, it's really tough to quantify that TV is doing anything for you. So let's try to combine some data sources together and see what happens. Yeah. And then we'll combine it and go, well, hey, look, your midnight ads don't do squat, but your ads that run, from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock, we do see a boost in search. Like every night, 6 to 8 o'clock, there's a boost in search when those ads run. So, most of the time, though, we're kind of discouraging and, saying don't do any traditional
because the data's
stuff.
better purely online, and you believe you can generate better ROI.
But that being said, one of the things that I typically say when I'm speaking at conferences is local SEO has kind of come full circle, and it's gone back to old school marketing tactics. So the being involved in the community, being an active community member, sponsoring a little league or, Pee Wee football team or something like that, being involved in the community, Chamber of Commerce meetings, things like that people used to do just to get their business out there. Those are all really great link building opportunities now. Yeah. So if you're doing those things, you're doing them to show up better in search, but they also have the benefit of being the old school technique that gets you out there in the real world offline. And I think that those definitely do have an effect. I think that involvement with the real world matters. I'm sure you saw, it was maybe a month ago, that Google got a patent for quality visit score, I think it's called.
I haven't seen it.
I don't remember if it's quality visit score. It's quality visit something. But basically, we already know that they're tracking, at least for sure on Android phones, when you're visiting locations, and that's how they're populating it's busy at these times. But this was a patent for a quality visit metric that would apply to the ranking algorithm that looked at someone in the real world visiting that location and being able to track that someone in the real world visited that location. Yeah. So they're starting to try to figure out ways to attribute offline actions that will influence ranking. So
to understand essentially the quality or the authority of a particular business.
Sure.
Basically. Rather than relying on some other metrics.
So almost like and one of the things that I read about it, and I don't know that I necessarily agree with this because it'd be, depending on the vertical, it would be tough, but it compared it to pogo sticking off of a search result. So, you click on one, you go back, you click on the next one. It would be, you go in a business here for 5 minutes and you leave. That's not a quality visit because you need to be there, depending on, if it's a restaurant, you're going to need to be there at least half an hour to eat. So if you're there for 5 minutes, you leave, something affected you not staying. Mm-hmm. Or, if it's some other, a Tesco or something and you're in and out really quick, maybe that's good because it's supposed to be in and out.
It's quite hard to gauge it, isn't it? Because sometimes, like if it's a takeaway restaurant,
sure,
you're picking up a takeaway,
which is why I don't know. I think that was just a generalization, but I think the important key is Google is starting to try to look at those real world entity signals and figure out a way to put them into the ranking algorithm, because I think, and everybody said it for years, but I really do think links are kind of going away. I think it's just too easy to game, and it's not. They're getting really smart with machine learning and AI, and I think there's a lot of smart people trying to figure out ways that they can take that real world entity interaction and use that as a ranking signal instead of things that can be really easily manipulated like links. Yeah. I think links will always be a part of the algorithm, but I think the weight is definitely going to drop as they figure out these new ways to say, hey, look, there's 25 coffee shops within a 3-block walk of this office, but these 3 get all of the traffic. Clearly, regardless of if those 3 have links or not, those are the most popular coffee shops. Those should be the ones that show at the top of the results.
Yeah, I could certainly see that having a big impact to local. Because it doesn't impact e-commerce or those other kind of non-local sectors, does it? But it makes sense that Google starts to incorporate that data that it's getting from Android devices and its ability to kind of to geolocate users back into the algorithm.
Was it on Joy's forum? I can't remember where it was, but I saw some discussion on some site where some people were suggesting that it's probably a good idea to start doing like promotions that encourage visits to your location. So like, hey, we're having a, like car dealerships do it, local businesses will do it sometime where, hey, let's have a party, or hey, we're, the BMW dealership in Dallas does it where it's a coffee and cars Saturday. Yeah. So the first Saturday of the month, you come out and have coffee and bring out your cars. Everybody shows out. It's not really a car show because it's not guys that like put tons of money in their cars, but it gets everybody at the dealership Saturday morning. So any kind of an event that's going to get people to your business, whether they're actually buying from you or not. Hey, it's Customer Appreciation Day. Come by and have a free hot dog. But it gets a lot of people to come by, which potentially, if you're doing that once a month or twice a month, then that's giving those signals that people are coming by, which I don't know how reliable that's going to be, because you got to think if they're smart enough to start tracking that offline stuff, that they're going to see these spikes and go, that doesn't necessarily
those are types of events are good for customer relationships anyway.
Old school
They're
marketing.
good for building the brand, and Google's just realizing that and just bringing it in. So actually, the online benefit is kind of secondary. You should be doing these things anyway, because you want to build up your relationship.
And that's exactly what I keep saying when I talk about this local SEO stuff all over the world. Is I always say, it's coming full circle. It's going back to that old school guerrilla grassroots marketing, because those are real world entity signals that you should be doing this, because you don't want to just sit in your office and do SEO all day and hope you're going to get business. You should be involved in the community, because that brings you more business anyway. Yeah. And it makes you, like, people in the community, if you are, if you're in the U.S. and you're a veteran and people are really into supporting veterans, they're probably going to come buy from you because you're in the community and they know you're a veteran versus the other guy that they don't know about. Or if you donate to a certain charity and somebody else likes that charity, they're going to come do business with you because of that. So the more that you can interact with people in the real world outside of Google, the more potential you have to expose yourself and get business. And I think Google's trying to figure out how to relate that to the algorithm, because it makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's figure out how old school marketing can become ranking.
Yeah. But also, I guess, in a world where Google is going towards a paid world, where less of kind of natural organic opportunities, you want to be, I guess, shielding yourself from the potential impact of always having to pay Google. And by establishing yourself in a community, having that offline connection with kind of local customers, as well as serving Google's end, it also protects you from being too dependent on them, because you've just got a natural affinity with the community and those local relationships that are going to serve you long into the future of your business.
And depending on your vertical, because some are extremely competitive and you're going to have to pay to play, because that's just the nature of the business. Yeah. But I think there's still the vast majority of businesses out there, you don't have to do AdWords to succeed. Now, you may have to do good SEO, because there still might be a lot of competition, but I think you're totally right. I think doing the things that you should do because you're a conscientious business owner and you want to be out and seen in the community, I think it makes a lot of sense for Google to move in a direction to say, hey, this guy's clearly involved in the community and well-known and well-liked. That should translate into some sort of a rankings boost. It makes sense. And you should be able to, as much as I hate saying it, I think in the future, if it really becomes a situation where restaurants don't really need websites, you should still be able to rank well without a website. Where right now, maybe you can't because you don't have those links or the citations or any of the other things that are related to your website. Maybe we don't need that anymore for certain types of businesses. And now everybody out there is going, oh my God, did he just say that? But I think for certain types of businesses, maybe that kind of makes sense in the future, And it doesn't mean that we're not going to have a job, because people are always going to need, whether there's a website or not, you're going to need to know, hey, how do I, if now I'm showing up in Google without a website, how do I do that? Yeah. So I'm going to have to help people with that. And then I'm going to need tools that help me figure out what to do, so you guys are going to be safe too. So, exactly. Hey, we pretty much have pretty decent job security.
We're safe for a while.
Yes.
Greg, I think we're going to wrap it up there. That's brilliant. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
Enjoy the conference, enjoy the training. Hope it goes well. You've got some of our guys will be down there tomorrow with you. So.
And if you're going to Brighton SEO ever in the future, sign up for my training, because it's awesome.
Guys, thank you very much.